very much for being here. It was a great honor to make this film for the Yocha Dehi. They're a small tribe in Northern California. There's people who live by the spring. It was a great honor to make this film for them and to work with Dennis Banks, who spent a year with David and I in Indian country, took us to the center of his family, opened doors, and then left because he didn't want to influence the people that we interviewed. He wanted them to be able to speak from their heart. He knows and understands at 74 and having gone through all that he has gone through, the power of letting an audience decide who he is. And so that's why you saw a very balanced, I hope, position, because it is Indian financed, fully financed by a tribe. I'm Choctaw. Bob Hicks is our associate producer. He's Creek Seminole. Tashina Banks is Dennis's daughter. We had Okewingo, it's a Pueblo tribe, associate producer, and David is the co-director and co-producer, and he's just a very experienced filmmaker who is willing to work with me and to work on this film. Thank you very much for your support. I want to say again thank you to deadCENTER and to the state of Oklahoma, because you guys understand, I think, better than a lot of people, because many of you have Indian blood, and the tribes are very strong, but they haven't had the opportunity to yet tell their story, and I'm hoping this will be the beginning, because this is tribally funded, and the tribes, with the money, I hope, are now going to see we can tell the stories, and we can tell them truthfully now, because I think America's finally ready to hear this side of the history. And there's a lot to tell, and we just need people to listen. Dennis Banks has a book called A Ojibwe Warrior that if you might want to, it's I think on Amazon.com, and you can read more in depth who he is. I am a screenwriter, and Fred Roos is the producer who produced The Godfather of all things, and he had met Dennis, and Dennis had given him his book. I had another script with Fred. This is how it evolved, and Fred saw my resume, wrote for a show that Bob Hicks actually produced in Los Angeles called The First Americans in the Arts. That's our Oscars. And Fred said, would you take a look at this book and tell me what the story is here? Is there a movie? And I read it, and I said, this is a very, very important story. And it would be important to make this movie. And Dennis, when he heard and saw my 3 pages telling Fred Roos he should make this movie, drove 18 hours from the Leech Lake Reservation to meet with me in Los Angeles, and we talked for 4 hours. And at the end of those 4 hours, I said, even if John, it's going to sound egotistical, but it's not. He was saying, I need the story to be told, and if someone like Johnny Depp does it, then people will go and see, because they won't just go see anybody tell the story. And I said, Dennis, here you sit, and Hollywood won't know how to make this movie unless they know who you are. So let's make the documentary about you. And he really was hesitant. He said, I don't want to sit there and talk about myself. And I said, so we won't make it just about you, we'll let other people talk. And then he said, you know, my own children and my own grandchildren don't really understand. And I said, a lot of people don't understand. And it's both Native American side and white side, or any side. People watch this, and I'm very grateful when they say, I didn't know that. Lawyers watch this and they go, I didn't know all of that. And people that live through this, I didn't know all that. So I'm very grateful that we're connecting the dots. We could have taken stronger angles from every direction had we chose to, but we really wanted all audience members in this country and around the world to be comfortable to see that there's a lot of different points of view and a lot of different facets to who these people were. Most people are afraid of AIM members. They're killers, they're thugs, they came out of prison, who are they, what were they doing? And they weren't. I mean, they did come out of prison, but those were 5 years for stealing 16 bags of groceries. Those were crimes of poverty. Do we even understand what that means? When we were going across the country, we were at the Havasupai tribe, and a little 13-year-old boy came up to me and he goes, I'm not going to go see Dennis Banks. And I said, why not? He's a bad man, he was in prison. And I said, yes, but he went to prison for reasons other than being a bad man. So then you realize again and again the children need to understand what this is. So if we can educate ourselves, for those of us who don't know all the details, and start teaching the children, this country will change. And it's time for this country to see this side of history, because it's the other side and it's untold. And I know Americans care. I know they care. And Oklahoma's showing it to us, because we've won, if you don't know, the best documentary. We've won Best Documentary, and it's already gone back to our tribal chairman. It's gone to Dennis Banks. And if I could translate to you the joy in his voice that he's being acknowledged, that his life is being acknowledged as important, and that people are going to start paying attention to what's going on. some people might not think it's as personal as you can be, but he's been through a lot, and he opened up as much as he could to us, and he didn't want it all to be about him. So.
What's your next situation?
The next documentary, there are 2 more that I'd like to make, and then a lot more. Being Choctaw, I'd like to do something about the Choctaw and the Trail of Tears and the real way from the other side. But I'm also interested in doing 1860 to 1890, the Dakota Uprising. People have no idea that when Lincoln was in office that the 38 were hung and who they really were. I mean, there's so many lies that have to be turned around. And that time, and then 1890 maybe to 1950, so we can have these 3 eras covered. But again, then there's so many. People think that the Trail of Tears that ended here was the only Trail of Tears. There were marches all over the country, all the different tribes. Again, so many stories to tell. And I do, again, believe this is the time. With Obama in office, I mean, that made a big change. It shifted, and now we just have to step up and tell the stories, and I think we're ready too. I think we're ready. And responses like a film festival like this, it's not an Indigenous film festival. I mean, Indigenous film festivals, we're going to go that route, but we really wanted to hit festivals to say, are your audiences going to come and listen to us, or are we just going to tell our own stories to ourselves? And so we're very proud that deadCENTER has chosen our film. What did you guys think of it? Did you like it? Did you get in here in time?
The speaker here, said, feel it's important that our Indian people tell our stories, and I think it's really, really good that Stajatis from the root, Indian people from the root, to all those things, are doing that, and funded by natives, because us telling our stories is an opportunity for us to speak, because a lot of people don't want to hear it, and we hear about the Civil Rights Movement, we hear about the Jewish Holocaust, we hear all these stories of all these oppressed people that went through all these, sufferings, even in Africa, in Palestine, Tibet, and all these things, and still here in this country, it's like our story has been the silent story that doesn't want to get out. So, if that is the intention, to empower our people, and it's a good thing, because we see that, because like they said, that 10-year gap, our people got plagued with alcohol and drugs, and that historical trauma started to set in, but then after that, it seems like our people now are becoming rooted spiritually. The root of us is the spirituality. So I just want to say, I've been to American Indian and the Arts. So I've been there. My brother's been there. So do support it. Just do it all.
Thanks very much.